All right, we are good to go.
So we're going to go ahead and call the Board of Commissioners back into session. This is a discussion, related to the Montana Department of Health and Human Services. And we have, Jail Commander Joel Shearer here to give us a summary of what the issue is and, maybe some action the commissioners need to take.
So when individuals come in on crimes, they of course go through the legal process. Most of them get sentenced to the Department of Corrections, but if there's mental health issues in the background, sometimes they get sentenced to the Department of Public Health and Human Services. And usually if I pulled the individuals I'm talking about right now, if I pulled their paperwork, it would say this individual was sentenced to DPHHS under the direction of the director of DPHHS. So it was found out, I was talking with administrative assistant boss that we have a couple of individuals that have the first individual, I won't say a name just because it is HIPAA stuff, this is recorded, I won't. The first individual was here for 152 days after being sentenced to Department of Public Health and Human Services. That's how long it took for them to get him a bed, to get him into the state hospital. 152 days is $19,852.72. He also cost us about $77.03 a day in medication for another total of $11,709.67. So I understand that our bed days have medical built into it, but that's more than we have built in. He also had been to the hospital a couple of times for another $918 approximately in bills there. The other individual that's still downstairs that has been sentenced there for 129 days at this point has cost us $16,848.69. His meds cost us about $31.65 a day, so that's another $4,083. So in total, these two individuals have approximately cost us over $50,000 that we don't get to see a dime of that. The county gets to pay for that. My issue with that, obviously, is that if these were DOC inmates, we wouldn't be paying these bills. Department of Corrections would be paying them. But because they're getting sentenced to Department of Public Health and Human Services, and what we have now found out, there is no actual contract with any counties through DPHHS, we get to foot the bill. Even though you have a state employee and a district court judge sentencing them to a state agency, it falls back on the county. And so this bothered me. That's why I asked Kate, hey, I think I need to talk to somebody about this because this is a legislative issue. I'm surprised other counties haven't addressed it, but maybe they're just so flush that they don't care. But I've never really seen this before because usually when we've had a DPHHS commitment in the past, they've moved faster. We know that that system on the mental health side is totally broken. And so I just felt like this is a large chunk of money, and I can see us having this problem continually into the future. And felt like it should be brought to your guys' attention as another thing that the state is
Public
it.
comment, County Attorney, Mr. LaPaka.
I was told by the head legal counsel for DPHHS that they would pay our state agreed upon bed rate for one of these individuals when we discussed that. And it's news to me that they're not reimbursing us at the state rate for a bed for someone who's been sentenced. I mean, is that new?
When we tried to bill them, they told us that there's no contract for them to pay that.
Can you forward that to me and I will begin a conversation with their legal counsel, because he told me personally that, because I was complaining about getting these people out of here. And his whole attitude was, well, you know, we're paying your bed rate the same way DOC does, and that's your remedy on this. It's,
Well, and if that's the case, then we're still out of line, but
well, we're still
lose
getting,
money, but we'll get not nearly as much.
not nearly as much.
yeah, I'd rather get screwed for 20,000, not
What about the meds that
50.
we keep giving them all year?
I'd like to send them a detailed bill for all of it. I don't know if you can break the meds out of the bed day costs. And
We did, and we could do it again. The response we got back from them was that there's no contract with any county for reimbursement.
Would you loop me back in on that and I'll see if I can
I will,
push that?
I will.
Yeah, it seems like we should be eligible for reimbursement of actual costs. You know, if they were in a facility that was state-owned, they would be paying those costs. I don't think it should be up to Lake County taxpayers to pick up that bill.
It's like our detention in general, though, the DOC, I mean, they arbitrarily come up with a number of, what is it now, $80?
$82.80 at this time.
And knowing that our costs are between 120 and 130.
Yeah, there's probably not a facility, there's probably only a couple of facilities in the state that are making any money at that rate.
Yeah.
Actually making money, also everybody's losing.
So is there a way for the counties to contest that rate? Like
It's-
by way of a lawsuit or something?
Ravalli County has had a lawsuit against them. I think Missoula County has one. I don't know if there's any others that have opened up lawsuits against the state. I know.
I think Missoula's lawsuit got shot down.
we've
It
tried to
did.
deal with it through legislature, and legislature wasn't willing to work with us on it.
On the bed rate,
The bid rate, yeah.
yeah.
Doesn't seem to me like legislature would be able to make that choice. That's saying, no, we're only gonna pay a partial payment when
Well,
if they would take him when they're sentenced, we wouldn't be having the problem.
I don't know, for me, it speaks of the disconnect between your legislators and what's actually going on in their county that they're looking out for.
Well, what the governor and the legislators want to tell the public every election cycle is, hey, we cut the state budget. Look how much money we saved. And they run on that platform.
Yeah.
Knowing that they just push those
You
costs
just pushed it out
on down the line.
And
in a
it's
more direct method,
just
actually.
like motor vehicles, that's a service the county does for the state. We don't have to do that. It costs this county a lot of money every year. And we just get a thing from the state, well, we're not paying for your computers or any of that information. We're not paying for the paper for stuff anymore. That's all your expense. And,
But we did get 945,000 last year, which probably covered our costs.
Well, yeah, but we get that anyway. I mean. the
No,
law-
we wouldn't get it if we weren't doing it.
Sure we would. It's in the law that we can have it.
Not
All we
according
have
to
to do-
Maryland.
Well, I don't agree with that. The law says we can't, but anyway. Um. They're just dumping more and more stuff on the counties and.
I will forward that information to you,
Thank you,
James.
I'll take it.
It's troubling to me that this is happening, again, and with, on top of everything else that we deal with, I just didn't feel it's right.
Well, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money and we could end up, I mean, you know, the thing is you could end up with an individual here. I mean, I always go back to, an individual who went almost every other day to the hospital because he was having seizures, even though he was on appropriate seizure medication. He was just that bad due to, traumatic brain injury and drug and alcohol abuse, multiple things. He cost us, I'm probably familiar, he cost us over $100,000 the time he was here.
Yeah.
So,
So I guess you're going to send that email to James and then James can pursue it a little further.
I'm in a feisty mood today and I'd like to confer with other James, but seems to me if they're gonna refuse to pay us a nickel for a guy they let languish in a county facility that's been committed to their care and custody for 140 something days.
52.
That might be a reason to sue the state of Montana to recoup those hard costs. It doesn't sound like a complicated lawsuit to me.
Well, like Joel said, you know, it's a state judge, a state district court. And then we're picking up the cost for it.
And they get that state rate set. We can all disagree about what the disconnect is between our actual costs and the agreed upon cost, but at least if they're paying us the state rate, they can say that they're pitching in. I could see them quibbling with us over medication, but if they're gonna completely stiff arm us and not give us a nickel,
We wouldn't be paying the medication if they weren't here.
Yeah. Wouldn't be sending them to the hospital, wouldn't be,
that's a part of their
No.
care and custody. That's what the district court order is. This person is committed to the care and custody of the director of the Department of Public Health and Human Services, where we're the ones who are caring for them with the medicine and have them in custody in our bed. They should be paying that.
So when a judge orders them to this service or to,
DPHHS.
can they, could a judge say, and they will be responsible for these expenses until delivered?
I suppose the next time we have one, I can try and get that, written into the judgment, and that might get traction there and it might not. This is all news to me.
So when they're, under the custody of the state, is that Warm Springs? Is that the only place they can be housed?
They have to go to, what is it, Galen?
Yeah, and I think the way the judgment reads, it says to the director of DPHHS, I think is how it.
They've got a couple different facilities. They've got the civil side where we do involuntary commitments, and they have the criminal side. These individuals are being sentenced to DPHHS, and so that's like a prison sentence to the state
Right.
hospital.
So I think they leave it they put it to the director of DPHHS, kind of like the Montana, the warden at the Fantastic person.
And then the warden can send them to Shelby or ship them to Arizona or whatever they
Yeah.
want to do with it.
Okay, well, keep us in the loop, James, see what you hear back. Okay, so I want to take just a few minutes and touch bases with folks on this PL 280 costs. I would like to get a claim off to the state of Montana. And Kara's put a lot of work into it. You guys have sent her information and I guess when I started looking at the numbers that were on the spreadsheet, it seemed like the total monthly bill that we had calculated kind of for June, I don't remember what the total was, but when I multiplied it by 12, we come up with like 1.4 million. And as a county, we've been saying it's been much more than 1.4 million a year, our public law 280 costs. Now, granted, there's some of the costs that we didn't, include, some of the deputies' times responding to calls and some of the, I guess, your so-called soft costs. So we were trying to go after the hard costs and, I guess my objective from the beginning was, let's put something there that, we can verify, we can validate in case somebody questions them. Something that the public can take a look at and understand. And also something that, a judge can take a look at and understand and say, yeah, this is reasonable. The way you did it was rational, it makes sense. I don't want some of this information to get in front of a judge and say, I don't understand, your methodology here, it doesn't make sense. So, I wanted to make it simple, I wanted to make it understandable. It's very likely that this is gonna be an exhibit that's made in a lawsuit somewhere. And so anyhow, I think what I did was I took that 127,000 there total and multiplied it by 12, and I think that's where I come up with the 1.4 million if this is a monthly cost. And I don't want the public and other folks to say, well, you guys have been saying it's 4 and 5 million a year, and now here's a month and it's only, when you multiply by 12, you only get 1.5 million. What have you been lying to us about the costs, or, where'd you come up with this 4 to 5 million a year? Because your own spreadsheet doesn't validate that it's costing you that much.
I thought at one time, our own Lake County's own study was around 2.
2.86.
And then the state came back with 4,
Yeah.
point something. So I don't know, the Lake County ever said 4 to 5, the state said 4 to 5,
And then the state built in a cost of living increase every year too, and that's how it's crept up to the figure it is now. But yes, our original presentation to the legislature was 2.86.
yeah.
Well, and these numbers are based on actual data from like 45 days which
Right.
may, it might be an anomaly of
Well, and if
the actual population.
one, an anomaly, and two, we may have missed some things because this is new for people. And, you get into a job and you have your habits and then
Yeah.
you go a couple days and you do it and then you kind of forget. So it's possible you miss some stuff. I mean, I'd like to think at least on the detention side, when it comes to this medical stuff, that we're on top of that. I'm pretty sure we're solid on these transports because they're making those transport forms mandatory for every transport now, right, Joel? So it's not just Indians, it's everybody.
Yeah, they still missed a couple,
So, but yeah, I mean.
I figured
It's
that out.
even so,
I figured that out.
or did you already?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that other than, we don't have inmate medical, cause as I explained to Tara, some of that takes a while to hit. So sometimes we don't see that. Sometimes I see it within a month. Sometimes it's 3 months or 4 months before I even see it. And I think the other thing,
If we pulled back to January on some of these medical bills, that would inflate that cost quite a bit.
Because yeah,
So if you wanted to go from the date that Governor Gianforte said, F you,
yeah.
that might be a good thing to do, I don't know.
The other thing is I think right now, we've been down. I don't know why, we're down in numbers in the jail closer, we're at 40, say today we're at 42. We've been 40, 39 for over a month. I don't know why we're
Yeah.
low, but we are. That's not normal for us. So we've been in the upper 40s, low 50s. So that changes that
Oh,
number dramatically too. If you had 10 more people, even if only half of them, you know what I'm saying? That changes. You're talking about 1 month.
Yeah.
We could have a month that there could be a month where we could double that in a month.
And we've been trying to get
So-
only hard costs, like.
Right.
We put this together, I feel like the assignment was indisputable, discrete, specific costs, the butts and jail beds being the most simple and quantifiable thing. We wanna lump in the cost of one of my support staff and have Tara, I think she's already done it, average out.
It's on here.
Well, you've got one attorney. But we had talked about one of the support staff too.
Oh, yeah, that's just for the attorney.
Yeah,
so then I guess,
but then like I've been hesitant to like add in stuff that is gonna be subject to any argument, right? And I feel like it's obvious that my office is using at least an FTE of an attorney and the support staff to prosecute all of these 280 cases. But it could be 1.5.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's some weeks it's 2. So by not reaching, I think the numbers that we are submitting are less subject to debate.
so I guess maybe the counter argument would be, we say that half of our, cases are public law 280 cases. So why wouldn't we take the entire cost of your office and cut it in half and divide it by 12 and say that's our monthly cost?
Not a bad argument. It's just, when I sit in district court during law and motion days, it is, I would say, more than half. At least what you're being, it doesn't count the justice court stuff, right? So that might, but if I sit in district court for 2 days every week, it is like mostly tribal members, honestly.
Yeah.
Then we've got, Lori and David, they're here on a special federal grant to do stuff, so I'm kind of hesitant to like
Yeah.
touch that.
Right.
And And then, yeah, Michelle's in justice court and Paula mostly handles the justice court stuff. So, I mean, realistically, that leaves Brendan and Ben and Sophie and Robin as kind of being there. So, you know, that's where I come up with one FTE on each side. And it's like when we were talking about Don's budget and you know, if we get out of 280, it's not like the sheriff can lay off 6 patrol deputies. If we snapped our fingers and all the 280 cases were completely 100% not our problem anymore, I could do with one less lawyer and one less support person, but not two.
Well, you would though.
We have half as many patrol deputies, I could.
Yeah.
So do you know what the yearly budget for the county attorney's office is? Without the grants and,
Without the grant, it's like 800 or $750. Just under $1 million, and I think that grant is just under $200,000 a year, so.
And it's 216,
Yeah.
yeah, for the OVW, yeah.
So
800,000, 400,000 divided by 12, 30-some thousand a month.
Well, if we add,
50%. I mean, what we're arguing is we're spending taxpayer dollars, you know, for these public law 280 costs. So, you know, what is the expenditures of taxpayer money for our participation in public law 280? I mean, the grants don't, I don't think the grants count.
if you
well, I
took,
can add one full-time staff to this.
if you added one full-time staff to that, that takes this up from about 10 to about 15.
Yeah,
And, you know, if you took the entire office budget and took the grant positions out and took me out, you'd be looking at about 600. Cutting that in half would be about 300. Dividing that by 12 would be something.
so,
30, under 30,000.
yeah, under
Yeah.
30.
27,000.
Yeah, 27, or about double the 15. I
Yeah,
mean, if your goal is to make it bigger, that would be my suggestion. Take the entire office budget, take me out and take the grant out and say the entire rest of the staff, what half of that budget is going to this. If then someone's gonna turn around, they're gonna go, wait a minute, you filed 402 felonies last year and 235 of them were not tribal members, so instead of half, it should be 46% or, you know.
But what we were always told
Did you
up
get that?
until just recently is that it was like 60% of what you get was private.
Yes.
Well, there's nobody keeping track of the DC numbers. The only thing we're keeping track of is the arrested people or the people in jail or the people who are sentenced on the DOC end.
But-
And then extrapolating in both directions.
If we're holding tribal inmates and it's 60%, say it is 60%, which I would say it's probably not that most of the time. It's probably closer to the 50. But they're gonna be here on DC stuff. If they're tribal. It's just gotta be. And that's,
Yeah,
it can't be misdemeanor stuff, so.
so Tara, do we have enough to where we could put together a detailed claim?
Well, I have an invoice that I sent you guys. This is what it, oh, it's ugly. I don't know what happened to it, but anyway, this is the.
That's with
This is,
the different bed rate.
yeah, this is with the different bed rate because this is with the medical broken out. If you don't want to break out the medical, then I can take all of the medical off and change this up to $130.61 per inmate per day.
So that would make it
So,
easier for you if we don't break out the medical.
well, it'll make it easier for these guys because they're the ones keeping track of it. And yes, I'll have less spreadsheets. Because they'll keep track of less. Cause so on this little summary sheet that I have here, so this is showing you the difference. And I don't think that we can include, that's why this number is 127, but then I have less the detention time. Because I do believe the detention time is included in that $130 daily rate, because we include all of the detention costs there. So we should take that out too. So then you can see comparatively that when we break it out, we're still, what, $5,000 short?
Right.
But we don't have all the medical bills yet. But how long are we gonna wait for them? We don't have all the medical bills yet. We don't have all the hospital bills yet. I mean,
I think
maybe
we
we
did,
do,
but
right?
no.
We don't. We know we got this one. That's why I said, that's why this says won't have any billing for months, if any, and then we actually did get one.
And I
So-
think we just keep that note in there and
Yeah.
I
So,
mean, I can understand trying to be hard and fast about having exactly everything, but there's variables in this that, you know, are gonna jump up and down. I mean, the $130 a day is probably gonna be good most of the time. Because we're gonna have that one inmate, we're gonna have an individual,
like that.
I'll say his name, we're gonna have an individual that's gonna cost us more.
Well, we've got an inmate
So-
downstairs that just turned DOC 5 hours ago, and that one inmate was gonna be costing us, you know, an FTE a month in medical costs.
Yeah,
So you get one of those.
yeah,
But they won't be our problem now?
no, they're DLC.
Oh, okay.
Because of the masterful work that our county attorneys have.
Wonderful.
I
Thank
mean,
you,
seriously.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
and anytime we have those though, they'll be reflected in next year's calculation because the average is based on, you know, the previous year's average costs.
right.
So, or not the previous average cost, it's the previous actual cost,
Right.
what the new average is built on. So,
And I don't have a good picture of what that population looks like. I've got a rather skewed historical narrative with people Commander Todd is begging me to sort out because they're having problems downstairs.
How many beds do we have?
Well, we have 48 beds, but technically, if you consider, we're not supposed to consider ad-sec beds as space. Because those are supposed to be temporary positions, like that's not, it's not supposed to be a bed,
44,
according to ACLU, we have 42.
42, okay.
and our average calculation is based on 48 beds.
That counts back down to all,
48 counts spec man,
well, but 42 doesn't.
42 does not include spec man or the 4 ad-secs. So we
I
have,
guess my thought on breaking out the medical was that when we get someone in where we spend a ton of money on it,
Mhm.
we would be better able to recoup our actual expenses rather than just putting it in the daily rate. But
Over time, we should be able to, based on the average.
And it's much more specific. And I can see whoever we're arguing, well, where did you get this average number from? And does that really
Yeah.
apply? And if you can say inmate number whatever was here for this many days and received this many dollars worth of healthcare costs, that's much more particular, and I think a judge or
Well, you're figuring
court.
the daily inmate stuff wrong. For one thing,
Why?
take $105.
No, that's the new one.
Okay, but I used the new one.
Okay,
All right, so there's 42 beds times $105. Then multiply that by 30 days.
Multiply by
what
what?
now?
You take you have 42 beds at $105 a day.
Okay.
That's your daily rate.
Mm-hmm.
Now multiply it times 30.
132,000.
Yeah, you're $100,000 off.
But we don't have the whole, but I only did the public law 280 people that they told me to.
So only a third of them were,
Yes, that's what I have off of the reports.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
What do you mean, a third of them?
well, you gave me 840 days.
Yeah, we billed 842 bed days.
Thank you.
Yeah,
CJ.
800, that's for June. So June, we did 842 days.
Right,
Okay, that's just the tribal inmates.
that's just
Correct.
private.
And then just the May one was only 318 because it was only 10 days.
All right.
Barely got this math thing down.
So we averaged 28 tribal inmates a day in June.
I guess maybe we should put that. I'm just using that bulk number. Maybe we should have that number.
So actually,
Oh,
in
here,
in
so.
June, and I don't know what,
We're talking 42 beds, but we do use 48 for our
Yes,
calculation.
I know.
Oh, okay.
but we were actually at 66% tribal inmates for the month of June.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many variables that go into this. It's like I said, medical is gonna jump. It could jump, like I said,
Oh, yeah.
1 month, we could end up, and it happens.
Well, if we get
We
that.
get that,
person that's
we get that
$11,000
individual that
a
costs
week,
us a bunch of money, you know?
Well, again, I think we just need to be able to get in front of a judge and say, this was our rationale. And we think it makes sense. And, this is what we're presenting as our costs.
Joel and Terry, how did we come up with our bed rate?
It's a calculation that the state uses.
And to me, it's like, yeah, that's kind of like tracking.
So it's basically, so this one's changed. This one's changed. But it's normally all of the medical costs would go here. That's the $130.61. So it's all the medical costs, all detention operations, and then all of the detention, which that includes their wages.
Yeah.
And then detention officer and retirement and health insurance gets added here. And then based on 48 beds.
I wondered where you got that. So that's the state
Mhm.
method of calculating.
Yep. Yeah, I was wondering, and I did find it on the NACO website. So this was
It's-
Scott's spreadsheet, but this is
Yeah.
the same thing that,
And see, back when I was sheriff, the state came out with a formula because when I was sheriff, we were charging 115 a day. And other counties were charging 30 and, I mean, it was just all over the board. So the state said, use this formula.
Yep.
And this is how you pay. Ours actually went up at that point in time with their formula. And, they found out that it was gonna be so much higher than the way it was being done, that's when they ended up going to that flat $60 a day. Well, we're just not gonna pay that one, pay 60 a day.
Right.
And legislature did that. And Mako fought it, the Sheriff's Association fought it, everybody fought it, legislature's tough.
Well, it got, correct me if I'm wrong, it got slid in on a, like a rider on another bill.
Yeah, it got stuck in.
Got snuck in and
Would you go back to the page that has your claim on it?
Yes. So if you, oh, and I'll add the, and you guys can add some more verbiage. I didn't know what you wanted. I don't know why this stuff, oh, this, there we go. It looks ugly. So I don't know who to send it to. But
Oh.
then you can put some other message in here, whatever you want. Then we can put whatever calculation you decide to go with. If you wanna stick with 105 and keep breaking out the medical costs, then this is what it's gonna look like. If you don't want to do that, oh, I didn't make one, but
We did-
I'll just take all that stuff off. That is included in the $130.
See, for our 2.86 million, we'd used the formula that was there, that we'd always been using, that included the medical costs and everything. Broke it down to a daily rate and then assessed. So how tribal members were this many days, that's what it cost at the end of the year. And, that's the formula the state gives us, and that's in Mako. That's what I've used. Cause the state's basically okayed that.
It's just when you have a month that's more expensive because, you know, well, I don't think.
so if we had 5 more tribal inmates, it's another $20,000 almost in a month.
5 more inmates?
5 more tribal inmates.
Right.
So if we weren't at 42 or 40, like we have been through the month of June. And if we had 5, you know what I'm saying? Like our population goes up and we have 5 more tribal inmates.
Another 240,000 a year.
Yeah, it's another $250,000.
What,
And
like,
we
have you
haven't
ran
paid-
reports to see what July looks like so far?
I was just upstairs and playing.
I can,
Yeah.
I have.
Just to see, I mean, cause we only have a couple days left at this point, well, a week, I guess.
Well, we need to,
Yeah, I'll run it on. I'll probably do it on.
But I'll add the, so you want me to do the other calculation that James wanted for his office, the whole office budget minus him divided by 2, you wanna do that one? Okay. So I'll redo that, so that'll be something different.
I've had, dogs.
And then-
That I'm checking into.
And then, I mean, basically the choice is, do you want to go with breaking this out? And either way, I think this needs to go away. This one,
To a neighbor.
the detention time for both
Right.
of these, those need to go away.
What's that intention time for?
The what?
That's for mental health visits and,
Yeah, yeah, but.
but don't we end up paying a lot of overtime for that kind of stuff?
Right, but that's included in the average cost in our
For what?
calculation. Their
Yeah,
wages
'cause
aren't.
you've got the whole budget, so
Yep.
whatever it is.
Yeah, so that's why I don't think that should be in there. But now a deputy that goes
That's-
on a transport, their costs count, and that's why it's broken out here.
So I wanna find.
And of course, any mileage, that won't be included.
right,
So I wanna know where I have.
And I think the sheriff and undersheriff's part of their wages should be broke down to be included in
Well,
detention costs too.
I did add that to the 105, that's how we got to the 105 a day.
So
I took out the medical and then added 20% of the sheriff's wages, but
so,
it depends on if you wanna go with revised calculation or the original one.
so Joel, you think the medical cost will even out over a
I think
Very that
typically, I
much.
mean, I think occasionally we run into an individual, I mean, and I can think back through time, we've run into an individual. And I think if that's the case, then, you know, we could. I don't know, I think if you have something that's pushing you over what your average is, then we address that issue.
Yeah, you have to stay.
Yeah.
And our,
You know,
our daily rate is always a year behind because. we took
Exactly.
That budget year, figured out the costs, and that's what we charge for the next year.
Yeah.
So that's why I think,
Well, yes,
I mean, you take this one individual, and of course, he's not DOC and you take this one individual and, I mean, $77 a day just for his meds. And at the 105 and 77, we're past the 130.
Yep.
Now, he's not an enrolled member, so it doesn't apply to him, but I'm just saying, it's real easy with the right individual, and we're gonna know who that is. Like, I know when we got a guy that's like going to the hospital a lot or has high meds, like I see it. So it's really easy for me to go, okay, this guy's below on our daily rate out, and we could certainly take that person, break them down and go, these are the costs above this, and
So
we
we
can
could
add that.
How about the anomalies?
so still keep track of
but
it.
even then, at the end of the year, on the average, we could still, even with those higher ones, we could still come in lower. Because you might have months with, and unrealistically.
Right.
Well,
Well, I
way
can
less
almost
spent.
guarantee you our price is gonna go way up this year. Because our medical it was $500,000+ this year. Just for,
Well, why don't you put us together a new, claim and then one, you know, we need
you
to
want
really
one for
nail
both?
it.
Is that where, what do you want, what do you want?
Include the medical and the daily rate.
I
So just go back to the original calculation?
I think so, because they're
130?
saying,
I think
if
just the
we
daily
have
rate.
an anomaly, we can sort it out and.
and that's what Mako puts out to use as the formula.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Well, I think it makes
So-
it easier on everybody, and I think I don't think the state's gonna try and pick it apart that much.
No.
They're not gonna pay it anyway. so.
Exactly.
Well,
If we
So-
come in at half what their $5 million is, they're gonna be easier to deal with, but still.
I'm just removing us, so now. That's the number.
Cause whatever we send in this time, we're gonna have to stay with that same format into the future. times. I just would like to get a claim off to them
Okay,
here before the end of the month.